The doorbell cut through the silence at exactly 3 in the afternoon.
Are you ready for the lesson?
Hayato stared at the stranger on his doorstep, words caught in his throat.
I think you have the wrong house. My grandmother passed away 3 years ago.
I know. I am Kaede. The contract between our families was for 20 years.
For 3 years? But there was no one here.
Yes, until today.
The house suddenly felt less empty and more haunted.
Shall we begin the lesson? The piano is still here.
He stepped aside. Her presence filled the hallway with a strange nostalgia. She walked to the parlor as if she had done it 100 times. She had.
Sit, please. I will adjust the bench.
He sat at the upright piano his grandmother had played for him as a child.
Your posture needs correction, may I?
Her fingers brushed his shoulder blade, light as a conductor's baton.
Your grandmother taught you first, didn't she? I can tell.
How does she know that?
Play something she taught you. Any piece.
He played the first notes of a lullaby his grandmother used to hum.
That was her favorite.
She didn't just know the contract. She knew the melodies that had filled this room decades ago. And Hayato, for the first time since he had inherited the house, felt that someone had been waiting for him.
How could you possibly know that?
She spoke of it often, her favorite piece to teach.
Her hand closed gently over his, repositioning his thumb on middle C.
Relax your wrist. Tension travels from your shoulders.
He tried to loosen his shoulders, but her nearness made it impossible.
She always said you held your breath when you came to a difficult passage.
She's describing a habit I haven't noticed myself.
Then she hummed the lullaby, not the melody, but the harmony a grandmother sings to a child.
That harmony, no one else could know it.
Before his finger could press the wrong key, she lifted his hand and repositioned it.
You were about to hit G sharp. The piece modulates there later, not yet.
You corrected me before I made the mistake.
A teacher must anticipate. It is my duty.
The word duty landed like a wrong note, but he didn't know why yet. The lessons stretched on, each correction a thread pulling him back to a childhood he thought he had buried.
Next Saturday, then, same time.
Yes.
She left as quietly as she had arrived, the front door clicking shut like a metronome. He walked back to the piano and picked up the framed photograph of his grandmother.
What did you tell her about me?
The house answered with silence and the lingering scent of her perfume. For 3 years, she had walked into an empty room. Now, finally, there was someone to unsettle. The next Saturday, and every Saturday after, Kaede returned at the same hour. Hayato found himself waiting, fingers already hovering over the keys before the doorbell rang.
Good afternoon. You have been practicing.
Yes. I tried a piece you didn't assign.
Chopin's Prelude in E minor. You rushed the tempo in the middle section.
She wasn't even here. How could she know?
He had chosen it precisely because it wasn't in his grandmother's old songbook.
Do you have recordings in this house? Something I don't know about?
Your grandmother told me. When you were 5, you had a fever and hummed this tune.
I never told anyone that.
A buried memory surfaced. His grandmother's cool hand on his forehead, her soft humming.
She said you always hummed in your sleep. It helped her calm you.
He couldn't play after that. The lesson ended in silence. That night, he lay awake, the lullaby looping in his skull.
She knows my childhood better than I do.
By morning, a new resolve had formed. He would dig into the past. He started with the storage closet under the stairs, a place he had avoided since moving in. Boxes, stacked and labeled in his grandmother's fading handwriting.
She never threw anything away.
Inside, old letters and photographs spilled out, but not what he sought. He knew the real truth was somewhere in this house, buried beneath the silence. So he kept searching. He found it in a drawer he had overlooked beneath a false bottom.
A hidden drawer?
The envelopes were stacked neatly, each one addressed to his grandmother. Lesson report. Week 1, Year 1. Student made progress on scales.
She wrote reports? For every single week?
Week 104, Year 2. The house was quiet. The piano stayed in tune.
2 years in, she was still writing as if someone was listening.
The dates continued long after his grandmother's death. Week 156. No lesson today. The photo on the piano smiled as always.
She wrote to a dead woman as if they were still having tea.
The tone shifted. Later reports were more personal, less clinical. The garden has overgrown. I remember you loved the camellias.
This isn't a report. It's a diary addressed to the dead.
The last envelope had no stamp, no address, just his grandmother's name.
Addressed only to her. Why keep it if you can't send it?
I will keep coming. He may not return, but the promise was to the house.
She promised the house? Not just the contract. To the house itself.
The paper smelled faintly of tea and old ink. 3 years of waiting in a stack.
All this time she was here. Every single Saturday for 3 years.
He understood then that the contract was only the surface.
What else is she not telling me?
He put the reports back, but the last one he folded into his pocket. The house felt heavier, as if the truth had weight. The next morning, he walked to the neighbor's house at the end of the street. She was the only one who still remembered his grandmother's routines. Through her window, she had watched Kaede arrive every Saturday for years. The old woman welcomed him with tea and a knowing look.
She said the contract was for 20 years, from the very beginning. And that Kaede kept coming, even after grandmother died. Without fail. She just smiled and said Kaede had her own reasons.
Then the neighbor added something that stopped his breath.
She always asks about the grandson. Every time she visits, she asks for news. Kaede asked about me. For 3 years, she asked if I would ever come back.
Hayato set down his teacup and stared at the rising steam.
So she was waiting for me. Not just the house.
He thanked the neighbor and walked home in a daze. Back in the parlor, the reports in his pocket felt like embers.
If she's been waiting all this time, what exactly does the contract say? Maybe there's a clause I don't know, something that ties her here.
He sat at the piano and touched the keys without pressing.
Next lesson, I'll ask her directly. I need to see the original document.
The grandmother's photo seemed to watch him with gentle patience.
Grandma, what did you arrange? And what didn't you tell me?
The silence stretched until the clock struck 3.
I won't let this go. Not until I understand the whole truth.
On a Tuesday afternoon, the doorbell rang, and he opened it expecting Kaede. Instead, an older woman with chestnut hair and a knowing smile stood before him.
You must be Hayato. I am Kaede's mother. May I come in?
He stepped aside wordlessly, and she glided into the hallway with the same calm grace. In the parlor, she sat by the piano without permission, her eyes on the photo.
I came to explain the contract. There was a clause you should know.
A clause.
The lessons were to continue for the heir. When your grandmother died, Kaede insisted on honoring it.
Insisted? Even without pay?
She believed you would return. She said it was her duty to the agreement.
Duty.
She takes obligations seriously. Even when the payments stopped, she would not stop.
Hayato felt a chill. Not from her words, but from the way she said it, like a burden.
So she's been trapped by this contract all along.
You are under no obligation. You can end the lessons.
I see.
He thanked her with a politeness that sounded rehearsed. She nodded and left. The house fell silent again, but his mind was loud with a new decision.
She's only here because of the contract. I should free her. Next Saturday I'll tell her. The lessons are over.
A hollow resolve settled in him, like a chord struck in an empty room. But the folded report in his pocket whispered a different truth, and the grandmother's photo looked on, still smiling. Saturday arrived with the same sharp doorbell, but now it felt like a verdict.
Are you ready for the lesson?
There won't be a lesson today. Or any day after.
She didn't flinch. Only her hands, usually so precise, stilled.
I know about the contract clause. You're free. You don't have to come anymore.
I see.
She picked up her bag and moved toward the door, each step measured.
Thank you for your time, Hayato.
The door clicked shut, and the house felt emptier than it had in 3 years.
That was the right thing to do. She doesn't need to be trapped.
But his chest ached with a hollowness he didn't expect.
Why does it feel like I broke something?
He unfolded the last report from his pocket, the words blurring. Week 160. The piano waited. So did I. He hadn't noticed before the final sentence was underlined twice.
She was waiting for me. Not just for the house. For me.
He returned to the drawer and pulled out the stack again. Week 150. I hope he is well. I hope he remembers this room. Week 140. His grandmother said he had kind eyes. I wonder if they've changed.
These aren't reports. These are letters to someone she never met. And I sent her away.
He sat alone at the piano, the silence louder than any music. He couldn't sit still. The silence demanded he move, search again.
She left something else. I know it.
His eyes fell on the framed photo of his grandmother. He lifted the frame. Beneath it, a thin envelope yellowed and flat. On the front, in fading ink, for grandmother, no date, no stamp.
Not a weekly report. This was her real promise.
Grandmother, I will keep coming. Not for the contract, for the house you loved and the boy you spoke of. If he returns, I will teach him everything you taught me. If he never does, I will play for you.
She wrote this right after grandmother died. The ink is still dark with grief.
The handwriting was the same as the reports, but here the walls were down.
She stayed for me. Not for duty. Because she promised to. And I sent her away. I have to fix this.
He folded the note carefully and reached for his phone on the music stand.
Kaide, this is Hayato. I need to talk to you.
The line rang 5 times before the voicemail picked up.
Please come back. Not for a lesson. Just to talk. There's something I need to understand.
His voice broke on the last word. He hung up and stared at the screen. The house was still silent, but now the silence felt expectant. He sat on the piano bench, the hidden note in his pocket next to the other.
Please let her come back. I won't waste the chance again.
The grandmother's photo remained, her smile patient and knowing. And Hayato held those 2 pieces of paper as proof that someone had been waiting for him all along. Now he just had to wait for Saturday, or for Kaeda's answer. The text arrived at dawn. I will come. No pleasantries, just the old time. He spent the hours before 3 pacing, the 2 notes like twin heartbeats in his pocket. When the doorbell rang, he opened it before the echo faded.
Good afternoon.
She walked past him into the parlor, and the air thickened with unspoken words.
I didn't prepare a piece. I wasn't sure you'd come.
Your message said you needed to understand something.
The reports. The one under the photo. I found them.
She stiffened, her hands freezing on the piano lid.
Those were private.
You wrote for 3 years. To a woman who couldn't read them. Why?
It was my duty to keep the record.
That's not the whole truth.
He pulled the hidden note from his pocket and unfolded it on the music stand.
You promised her. Not for the contract. For the house. For me.
Kaede stared at the familiar handwriting, and for the first time her composure cracked.
I had to believe you would come back. She spoke of you so often.
Hayato stepped closer, close enough to see the slight tremor in her hands.
But you waited longer than you had to.
Her eyes glistened, but she pressed her lips together and looked away.
Please, don't ask me to say more. Not yet.
As she reached to close the piano lid, their hands brushed, and she flinched. The air between them felt brittle, as if one wrong word would shatter it.
Perhaps we should still have a lesson to keep the record.
She's retreating behind duty again. I can't let her.
But he nodded, sitting at the piano, fingers finding a simple scale. She stood behind him, close enough that he could feel her breath.
Your 4th finger collapses. Raise the knuckle.
Her hand covered his, pressing gently, and this time it stayed. For 3 measures, neither pulled away.
Kaede? Did you wait for me? Or for her?
I waited because the house remembered you, And I could not let it be empty.
It wasn't an answer, but also it was.
She misses her as much as I do. That's why she kept coming.
He turned on the bench, and their faces were closer than he expected.
Your grandmother talked about you every single lesson. You were her music.
And now I'm becoming hers.
For a moment, they both looked at the photograph on the piano. The silence between them was no longer heavy but shared.
I wish I'd come back sooner.
You are here now. That is what matters.
He wanted to ask more, but the lesson had already been upended. Instead, he asked her to play the lullaby with him. They played together, hands touching, but the confession hung in the air untouched. And Hayato understood that whatever Kei had felt, it was more than obligation, but she was not yet ready to say it. Without another word, Hayato placed his fingers on the keys and began the lullaby. Kei's eyes widened, her breath catching as the familiar melody filled the room. She sat beside him on the bench, without being asked, her shoulder touching his. Her right hand joined the melody, finding the harmony, and their fingers overlapped.
She knows the harmony by heart.
They played together, 4 hands on the same piano, the melody weaving between them. When they reached the final phrase, his hand stayed over hers, unmoving.
Thank you. For waiting. For all 3 years.
Her composure shattered. A tear traced her cheek, then another.
I didn't know if you would ever.
I'm here now, and I'm grateful you kept coming.
She pressed a hand to her mouth, shoulders shaking, the years of silence finally breaking.
I've done the same to her, made her wait when she was already waiting.
Her gaze drifted to the grandmother's photo, and she whispered something too soft to hear.
You don't have to say it. I just wanted you to know I see it.
Kei turned back to him, her eyes red and wet, and for a long moment she just looked. Then, slowly, she placed her other hand on top of his on the keys.
Hayato,
She's so close to saying it. Just a little more.
The clock struck 4, but neither of them moved. She closed her eyes, and the tears still came, but now they came with a quiet, trembling smile. And in that silence, Hayato knew the last wall was thinning, that whatever she would say, it was already there in her touch. Hayato turned his hand under hers, weaving their fingers together.
Earlier, I said you waited longer than you had to. What did you mean?
She looked down at their joined hands, then back at his face.
I meant, the contract was for lessons, not for hope. I kept hoping you would come.
Her voice was steadier now, even as tears still wet her cheeks.
Your grandmother taught me to be patient. She said music is waiting until the right moment.
She gently removed her hand from his and placed it on top, just as she had during lessons.
I waited the way I was taught to.
Her fingers curled over his.
But Hayato, I waited longer than I had to.
The confession landed heavier than any chord.
She's saying it. The real reason.
He lifted her hand to his chest, holding it there.
So you waited for me. Because you wanted to.
Because I couldn't bear the thought that you might knock one day, and no one would answer.
Her eyes, still wet, held his without flinching.
All this time, it wasn't just the house, it was me.
He leaned forward, pressing his forehead to hers. The piano sat silent, the lesson long since abandoned, but the music between them had finally found its resolution. And the title moment, the hand adjusting his for longer than needed, was never about the piano. It was always about her waiting. He pulled back enough to look into her eyes, his thumb tracing her jaw.
I didn't understand at first. The reports, the lessons, they scared me. But then I realized I started looking forward to Saturdays. I was waiting too.
You were?
I was. And when I ended the lessons, it felt like closing the lid on the last sound.
Her breath hitched, fresh tears brimming.
I have to say it plainly. Kaede, stay. Not because of a contract. Because this house and I need you here.
I can do that. I want that.
He leaned in, and she met him halfway. The kiss was tender, a held note finally resolving. When they broke apart, a soft laugh escaped her.
All those years of waiting, and you only needed one spring.
No, I needed you, and you were already here.
She tucked her head against his shoulder, the cardigan soft against his sweater. The photo of his grandmother seemed brighter, as if she approved. The piano sat quiet, but the silence was no longer empty. They stayed like that, the lesson long forgotten. The clock struck 5, but neither moved. Hayato pressed a kiss to her hair and whispered something only she could hear. Not thank you, not an apology, just a promise. And in the parlor, the house finally felt like home. The next Saturday, Hayato returned the stack of reports to the hidden drawer. All but one, the last underlined twice, he tucked into a book on the piano. A week later, they walked together to the small cemetery at the edge of town. Kaede knelt before the headstone, brushing away a stray leaf.
I brought him, grandmother. He came back after all.
Hayato placed his hand on her shoulder and bowed his head. They left flowers that matched the camellias his grandmother once grew. Back home, the parlor glowed with late afternoon warmth. They sat at the piano together, as they did every Saturday now. But the lessons had become something else, a shared language.
You've improved. Your fortissimo doesn't sound like an accident anymore.
I had a good teacher, a very patient one.
Patience is just waiting in time. You taught me that too.
He turned a page of sheet music, but instead of a classical piece, a sketch fell out. It was a drawing of the two of them at the piano, signed by his grandmother.
She drew this before you came. She always believed.
So did you, and you were right.
She leaned against him, and they looked at the drawing in the quiet. Later, Hayato set the drawing next to the photograph on the piano. The house, once heavy with absence, now hummed with quiet duets. On the last Saturday before spring turned to summer, they played the lullaby once more. When the final chord faded, their hands remained together on the keys. And in the framed photograph, his grandmother seemed to smile.